On January 15, 2009, U.S. Airways Flight 1549, an Airbus A320, took off from LaGuardia Airport in New York City. The flight, bound for Charlotte, North Carolina, was led by Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger and First Officer Jeffrey Skiles. Everything seemed routine, with 155 passengers and crew on board. However, just a few minutes after takeoff, disaster struck. The plane flew into a flock of geese, and both engines failed almost instantly. The cockpit erupted with alarms, and Captain Sully quickly realized they had lost all thrust. The plane was losing altitude fast, and there was no time to return to the airport. After assessing the situation, Sully made a fateful decision: he would attempt to land the plane in the Hudson River. With remarkable calmness, Sully informed air traffic control of the emergency, then turned his attention to the passengers. The flight attendants instructed everyone to brace for impact. Below, the plane skimmed just above the George Washington Bridge, barely clearing it. Then, in a stunning display of piloting skill, Captain Sully executed a near-perfect water landing in the icy Hudson. The impact was rough but controlled, and incredibly, the plane remained intact and afloat. Passengers quickly evacuated onto the wings and into life rafts as the freezing water began seeping into the cabin. Nearby ferries and rescue boats immediately rushed to the scene, pulling passengers to safety. In the aftermath, all 155 people on board survived without serious injuries. Captain Sully's quick thinking and precision in those critical moments made headlines worldwide, and the event was soon dubbed the Miracle on the Hudson. Sully's calm demeanor and leadership under pressure turned him into a national hero. He and his crew were celebrated for their actions, and the story became a symbol of hope, bravery, and survival. On January 15, 2009, U.S. Airways Flight 1549 prepared for what was supposed to be a routine flight from LaGuardia Airport in New York City to Charlotte, North Carolina. The Airbus A320, carrying 155 passengers and crew, was under the command of Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger, a former Air Force pilot with decades of flight experience, and First Officer Jeffrey Skiles, an experienced aviator. Passengers settled into their seats as the plane took off at 3:25 p.m., unaware that they would soon be part of one of the most extraordinary events in aviation history. The calm before the storm. Flight 1549 ascended smoothly into the cold winter sky. For the passengers, this was just another flight. Some were reading, others listening to music, and many dozed off in their seats. Captain Sully and First Officer Skiles were calm and focused, going through their routine duties as the plane reached an altitude of about 3,000 feet. The sky was clear, the air traffic around New York City normal. Suddenly, everything changed. The bird strike. At 3:27 p.m., less than 2 minutes after takeoff, the plane flew straight into a large flock of Canadian geese. There was no time to react. The birds hit both engines with a loud thud. The engine fans stalled almost immediately, followed by an eerie silence. Inside the cockpit, alarms blared as both engines lost thrust. In aviation terms, this was a catastrophic failure. Both engines were rendered inoperative, and the plane was rapidly losing altitude. The cockpit was filled with flashing lights, warning systems, and an overwhelming sense of urgency. However, Captain Sully and First Officer Skiles did not panic. Years of experience had prepared them for moments like this, and now they had to make split-second decisions that would determine the fate of everyone on board. The Mayday call. Captain Sully calmly radioed air traffic control: "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is Cactus 1549. We've lost thrust on both engines. We are turning back towards LaGuardia." The plane was now gliding, powerless. Air traffic control frantically began coordinating a return to the nearest airport. However, Sully and Skiles quickly realized that they didn't have enough altitude or speed to make it back to any airport. They discussed the possibility of landing at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, but even that option soon became impossible. With their choices narrowing rapidly and the ground approaching fast, Sully made a bold and unprecedented decision. He told air traffic control, "We're going to be in the Hudson." Decision to land in the Hudson. In the cabin, flight attendants moved quickly, instructing passengers to brace for impact. The mood shifted from confusion to fear. People gripped their seatbacks and tried to stay calm as the plane descended. Captain Sully remained focused, guiding the powerless aircraft over the George Washington Bridge, clearing it by a mere 900 feet. The river stretched out ahead of them, cold and foreboding. The ditching. At 3:31 p.m., just 4 minutes after takeoff, U.S. Airways Flight 1549 made a controlled descent into the Hudson River. Captain Sully executed a perfect ditching maneuver, keeping the nose of the plane up as it skimmed the surface of the river. The impact was rough, but far smoother than anyone had expected. Instead of breaking apart or sinking immediately, the Airbus floated on the water's surface. The impossible had been achieved: a successful water landing without the engines in the middle of one of the busiest cities in the world. Immediate aftermath: evacuation. Inside the cabin, passengers were in shock but quickly moved to action. The cold January air hit them as they opened the emergency exits, and icy water began flooding the plane's floor. People climbed out onto the wings or into inflatable life rafts. Some waded through the freezing water inside the plane, while others helped their fellow passengers escape. Despite the chaos, there was no panic. The flight attendants and crew, trained for emergencies, worked to ensure a safe evacuation. Passengers were calm, many helping others as they stood precariously on the wings of the plane, waiting for rescue. The rescue operation. New York City's ferry operators, who were used to transporting commuters across the Hudson, saw the plane and immediately diverted their vessels to the scene. Within minutes, a fleet of ferries and emergency boats surrounded the downed plane, pulling passengers off the wings and out of the life rafts. The water was frigid, and hypothermia was a real danger, but the quick response of the ferries saved lives. The New York waterway ferries became heroes themselves, quickly and efficiently rescuing the passengers and crew. Firefighters, police, and Coast Guard vessels arrived soon after, adding to the rescue efforts. In less than half an hour, all 155 passengers and crew were safely evacuated. The heroes aboard. Captain Sully, maintaining his composure throughout, was the last person to leave the plane. He walked the length of the cabin twice to ensure that no one had been left behind. Only after every passenger and crew member was accounted for did he step off the plane and onto a rescue boat. For Sully, this wasn't about being a hero, it was about doing his job. But for the passengers and crew who had just survived a near-certain death, he was nothing short of a miracle worker. National reaction: the miracle on the Hudson. News of the successful water landing spread rapidly. The media hailed Captain Sully as a national hero, and the public was in awe of the skill and calm displayed by the entire crew. The event became known as the Miracle on the Hudson, a rare aviation story where every single person on board survived what could have been a devastating crash. Sully's humility, however, was striking. In interviews, he praised the teamwork of his crew and the immediate response of the rescue teams. But the public couldn't stop admiring his calm under pressure and his remarkable decision-making in a crisis. Legacy and impact. In the aftermath of the event, Captain Sully and his crew were honored with countless awards. Sully received the Congressional Medal of Honor, and his story became a symbol of courage and professionalism. The National Transportation Safety Board (NTSB) conducted an investigation, which confirmed that Sully had made the best possible decision under the circumstances. Flight 1549's water landing became a case study in pilot training worldwide. The legacy of Flight 1549 isn't just about the skill of one man, it's about the power of teamwork, preparation, and the unbreakable human spirit. In the face of imminent disaster, everyone on that flight, the pilots, the crew, the passengers, worked together to survive. The Miracle on the Hudson remains one of the most celebrated and extraordinary moments in aviation history.